What do you mean? I was supposed to shine brightest on this day, yet my expression was strained. Why would you say something like that now? My mother came rushing in as soon as she heard my voice. It was just before my wedding. Despite being in a dressing room, it was not the place for raised voices, but I was at my wits' end. My name is Emily. I'm a 28-year-old employee. My father is a somewhat well-known business owner in our hometown, and I was able to graduate from college without any financial difficulties. However, my parents were always strict about the value of money, so I never wasted any. Since high school, I didn't receive any allowance and worked part-time. My local friends sometimes called me a down-to-earth lady, even though I was supposedly well off. But the truth is, I never thought of myself as such. During work, I saw a familiar face at a client's. It was my senior whom I liked in high school. His name is Tyler. He was popular for his good looks and because he was a member of the soccer team. I was the manager of the team and we used to talk a lot, but Tyler, 2 years my senior, retired that summer. Our contact faded away and he graduated. Could it be Emily? Tyler recognized me and called out. That brought back a flood of memories. He was as handsome as ever and his suited-up look was strikingly different from before. After dating for a year triggered by that encounter, I got an official proposal from Tyler. I was ecstatic to prepare for our wedding. But Tyler would just say, "Do as you like, Emily," leaving everything to me. I was a bit displeased, thinking maybe he didn't care about the wedding. But since he told me to do as I liked, I decided to do just that. When we went to view the wedding venues, Tyler seemed somewhat restless. I didn't pry then, but it later turned into a big issue. After viewing several venues, I expressed my preference, but then Tyler surprisingly stated, "I think this one is better." It was the first venue we visited, the one where Tyler was acting uneasy. It was a beautiful hotel with great food, so we decided on that venue. Tyler, who seemed to have no interest in the wedding, suddenly started actively participating in the planning. "When I saw the venue, I got motivated," Tyler said without me even asking. Our assigned wedding planner was a woman named Palma, who was the same age as Tyler. Her overly friendly demeanor bothered me. I wanted to keep the wedding preparations within our budget, but Tyler agreed with whatever Palmer suggested, and before I knew it, we had gone over budget. There was a dress I desperately wanted to wear, and I wanted to allocate the budget for that, but it seemed impossible. When I talked to Taylor about it, he said, "Just ask your parents to pay for it, Emily. They'd surely help out with that." But I wanted to avoid that. I didn't want to throw a wedding that was beyond our means by relying on my parents for expenses. When I came back from a restroom break during the meeting, it appeared Tyler had mentioned this to Palmer, and she insisted I needed that dress. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. You'll regret it if you don't wear what you want, even if it means going over budget." I understood her point, but her overly friendly manner and tone that seemed more like a friend than a planner irritated me, and I refused her suggestion. When I tried on a dress within our budget, I surprisingly liked it on me. If we were to spend more money, I thought we should spend it on the guests instead. I came to terms with this myself. When I tried on the dress, Grieve, who was in charge, said something that bothered me. "Do you know Palmer?" When I denied knowing her, I thought Grieve seemed troubled. But I was so excited about my first wedding dress, I couldn't dwell on it. One day, when we were about to go for a wedding meeting, Tyler said he couldn't make it due to sudden work. Reluctantly, I went alone. Then, instead of the usual Palmer, Grieve showed up. Palmer had taken an unexpected leave and Grieve was filling in. I found it easier to talk to Grieve. I took this opportunity to say that I wanted to change the plan recommended by Palmer, and Grieve agreed after hearing me out. I managed to choose the dress I had always wanted while staying within our budget and returned home in a great satisfaction. The next night, I received a call from Tyler. "You went ahead and changed the wedding plan on your own, didn't you?" His voice was lower than usual. "Palmer wasn't at the meeting yesterday, so Grieve took over. When I told her my wish, she changed it for me. Yesterday, Tyler was busy with overtime work, so I couldn't call him. I sent an email saying that I wanted to talk about the change in the plan and the details when we had time, but Tyler seemed unhappy. Was it because I changed the plan without consulting him, or was it because I reported it late? I am sorry I changed it without asking, but wasn't this the original plan? Tyler, you just went with what Palmer suggested, but you said you'd leave it to me in the first place." "That's rude to Palmer, who went out of her way to make the suggestion." Tyler's anger wasn't about the plan. It was about being rude to Palmer. Why was he defending the coordinator so much? "Tyler, do you prioritize Palmer's suggestions over my feelings?" When I asked more directly, Tyler sighed heavily. "Fine, I'll apologize to Palmer." With that, he hung up. What was that about? Why did it turn out this way? I was troubled, but I didn't want to ruin the wedding, so I apologized to Tyler the next day. I didn't know exactly what I was apologizing for, but I said, "I am sorry about yesterday." Tyler responded tersely, "Yeah, it's fine. I've already apologized to Palmer." Hearing that name again irked me, but getting angry now would defeat the purpose of my apology. I swallowed my feelings. Then Tyler suddenly changed his tone and began to speak. "Oh, by the way, about our new home." "Huh? New home? Aren't we moving into your company's apartment?" "We planned to register our marriage a month after the wedding, on my birthday. Since we could move into Tyler's company's apartment, we thought it would be cheaper and decided to move after the registration." Despite that, Tyler shook his head. "I thought about it, and living surrounded by my co-workers might be uncomfortable for you, Emily. I hadn't really thought about it, but my time at home was limited since I was also working. We had discussed maybe moving in the future, but for now our current place would do, or so we'd agreed." And then, out of nowhere, Tyler dropped a bombshell. "Hey, what if we ask your father-in-law to give us some land, and we build a house there? I'm sure he'd do at least that much for his darling daughter, right? We can put it in my name, so it'd be better if we register our marriage first, wouldn't it? That way, once we're married, we can start right away." "Hold on, what?" I remember thinking during our wedding preparations that Tyler was relying too much on my parents' wealth. It was time for me to put my foot down. "I've told you before, I don't want a life where we depend on my parents, and asking them to give us land is completely unreasonable. Both my mom and dad are very strict about money. There is no way they'd just hand it over." Surprised by my response, Tyler lost his momentum. "I see." With a sullen expression, Tyler fell silent. Even though there was a sense of unease between us, the wedding day arrived. Until now, Tyler might have had the idea to lean on my parents because he was still single, but I believed that getting married would make him feel more grown up and responsible. With that in mind, we went ahead with the wedding. As I entered the waiting room, only Palmer was there to greet me. As soon as she saw Tyler, she left the room. Tyler followed her out. Watching this, one of the staff members in the room seemed to sigh. Despite the uneasiness, I tried to keep a smile on my face, determined to make this the best day of my life. Despite that, Grieve, one of the staff members present, said something unthinkable to me. "Your life is over, you know." "Excuse me?" When I asked her what she meant, Grieve gave me a stem look, and she said, "Are you sure you want to marry that man?" "What do you mean?" These weren't the kind of words you'd expect to hear from a wedding venue staff member. As I stood there confused, Grieve continued. "If you don't mind me saying so, that man is cheating on you." The other staff members looked away. Not understanding what was happening, on the verge of tears, I shouted out, "Why are you saying this now?" My voice echoed down the corridor. My mom hurried into the waiting room. She tried to calm me down, while Grieve, too, apologized and tried to get me to sit down. Finally, Grieve broke the news. I was certain after seeing Palmer's behavior earlier. Tyler is having an affair with Palmer. I turned pale. My mother simply said, "I see." Her tone suggested she knew something. When I urged her to talk, she revealed that she had seen a man who looked like Tyler embracing a woman in another waiting room. She had gotten lost and accidentally peered into another room. She couldn't see their faces, so she didn't know who they were, and because she was in a hurry, she closed the door quietly and pretended she hadn't seen anything. She thought the man had a similar build to Tyler, but she had dismissed the thought that it could be him. The woman was wearing a black suit, and she assumed she was a hotel employee. When I described what Tyler was wearing today, my mother nodded. When Grieve asked my mother for more details, it became clear from the description of the hair and height that the woman was Palmer. My anger exploded. I was about to shout, but Grieve stopped me. "Why are you stopping me?" "Please hold on, the staff will be back soon." The staff member, who'd left a short while ago, walks back in. Mrs. Grieve takes her mobile phone from the returning staffer and brings it over to me. On the screen, I see both Tyler and Mrs. Palmer. I can hear their conversation too. "Once we are married, I get the land to build a house. If I play my cards right, they might build a house too. Then, immediate divorce." Tyler declares, chuckling. Next, a voice I assume is Mrs. Palmer's. "Tyler, you're such a scoundrel. If it weren't for me, he would have been happy with her." The two of them laughing together. From their conversation, it seemed Mrs. Palmer was Tyler's ex-girlfriend. She wasn't at the high school, so she might have been his college classmate. Apparently, they met again during the venue inspection and got carried away with the idea that it was destiny. When wealthy and handsome men come for venue inspections, she gets close to them, has affairs, and causes breakups. According to Mrs. Grieve, who heard their conversation, Mrs. Palmer is a groom hunter. However, she always gets away with it because there's never any proof. Mrs. Grieve had noticed her behavior with Taylor and warned me about they might be having an affair. You could have put it more gently. I say, cautiously. She immediately responds with an apologetic, "I'm so sorry." She had been at a loss for how to broach the subject, then blurted out, "Your life is over," as time was running out to catch them in the act. I take a deep breath and say, "Is it okay if I end his life?" I was going to bring Tyler's life to an end. After I finished changing, Tyler came in. "Isn't it beautiful? I want you to take a picture," I say. Tyler, smiling, takes out his phone and snaps a picture. "Let me see," I request, taking the phone from his hand. At that moment, Mrs. Grieve takes Tyler away to touch up his makeup. I start to search Tyler's phone for evidence of his affair. There are plenty of photos and exchanged messages. I never touched Tyler's phone, so he must have been careless. There was no passcode, and I might not have found the evidence if not for this situation. I screenshot the incriminating conversations and to transfer them to my phone. When Tyler comes back and I hand him his phone, Mrs. Palmer finally shows up. Other staff members had been keeping Mrs. Palmer busy. She had caused many grooms to call off their weddings and resented by nearly all the staff who lost their sales because of her. Tyler must have switched to Palmer's plan to support her sales. I guess he thought he could always beg my family for more money if he ran out. Thanks to the teamwork of the staff present, I was able to gather evidence of the affair. And then the reception begins. The next item on the agenda was to play the How the Bride and Groom Met movie. As the movie begins, Tyler yells out, "Hey, what the hell is this?" The screen displayed footage of him and Mrs. Palmer in a different room, acting intimately. All these were evidences of his infidelity, captured by me in screenshots. A furious yet pale-faced Tyler. I saw Palmer trying to leave the venue, but she was stopped by Grieve and her staff. The hall buzzed with commotion, Tyler's college mates looking at the pair with scornful eyes. I took the microphone. "Given the circumstances, I must apologize. Everyone will return the gift cards from the party. Please enjoy the food and treat this as a dinner party." I glared at Tyler. "So, you were after my family's money all along, huh? What's this about rekindling with an ex-girlfriend who works at the venue? Isn't it odd to speak of destiny when you're the groom and she's the staff? The red thread of the fate is supposed to be severed, right?" As I said this, I was met with applause of agreement from the audience. "I'm glad we didn't complete our registration. You were about to tarnish my family register. I'm satisfied just being able to wear this dress and take pictures. I will sue you for compensation in the divorce trial for your affair, as well as the wedding expenses." Unsurprisingly, the wedding was cancelled. I returned the gift cards to my invitees. My disgruntled father, who had witnessed everything, arranged for a lawyer, and I went hard after Tyler. He had to pay every penny for his cheating, for breaking off the engagement, and for the wedding expenses. And not just Tyler, but Palmer too. After a while, I received an apology from Tyler. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. I realized that I truly love you, Emily. Please, let's reconcile. How dare he say such a thing? People like you are bound to cheat again due to such lapses. You don't love me, you love my family's money. Well, after the hefty compensation from the divorce trial, I'm fairly wealthy now. At this, Tyler's face turned red with anger. You are a failure as a wife if you can't forgive a single lapse. Seems like that was his punchline. Well, I'm not your wife, so call me a failure or whatever you like. Laughing, I hung up the phone. Word about Tyler and Palmer spread among our classmates. It even reached their bosses and co-workers, and they had to quit their jobs. They sent me emails full of their misery, but I blocked them. Palmer abused her position to use a groom's contact information for personal use. She was sued for damages by her employer, and I sued her for compensation. She lost her job and had to work at a grocery store, looking completely exhausted. This is what I heard when Grieve came to apologize. As for me, I immersed myself in work. Work is enjoyable, but now I'm looking forward to joining a marriage party to find someone I can truly marry.